The UK is now carrying over £2.7 trillion in national debt, and it's growing by billions every single year. Inflation is eating into your wallet faster than your paycheck can keep up. Mortgage rates? They've tripled for some households in just the past 2 years. And if that wasn't enough, several leading economists are quietly warning that 2026 could mark the year Britain faces its biggest economic meltdown in decades. A collapse that could hit your savings, your job, and even the value of the pound in your pocket. Sounds extreme? Maybe. But history has a way of repeating itself, and right now the warning signs are flashing red. 10 powerful forces are building beneath the surface, and most people don't even realize it's happening. From a ticking debt time bomb to a housing market ready to burst, these risks aren't just headlines. They could change the way we all live. So what exactly is waiting for the UK in 2026? Is there any way to prepare? Stay with me, because the answers might shock you. Number 1, the debt time bomb. Right now, the UK's national debt has ballooned to over £2.7 trillion. That's roughly £40,000 for every single person in the country, including newborn babies. And it's not just the size of the debt that's alarming, it's how fast it's growing. In the last few years alone, the government has been borrowing at a pace we haven't seen outside of wartime, and now interest rates are much higher than they were when that debt was taken on. Think of it like this. Imagine putting your entire monthly salary on a credit card every month, but never actually paying it off. Eventually, the interest payments alone become so big that you can't afford anything else. That's exactly the situation the UK is edging towards. Already, billions of pounds of taxpayers' money are being swallowed just to cover interest payments on the debt. That's money that could have been spent on the NHS, schools, or infrastructure. Gone just to pay. And as global investors start to worry about whether Britain can manage its finances, they demand even higher interest rates, making the cycle worse. If this spiral continues, it could trigger a full-blown confidence crisis. The pound could sink, borrowing could become impossible, and the government might be forced into brutal spending cuts or massive tax hikes. Debt isn't just a number on a government spreadsheet, it's a slow fuse, and right now it's burning faster than most people realize. Number 2, the interest rate shock. Over the last 2 years, the Bank of England has raised interest rates to levels we haven't seen in more than a decade. On paper, these hikes are meant to control inflation, but in reality, they've unleashed a shockwave through the economy. For homeowners with variable rate mortgages have soared by hundreds, in some cases even thousands, of pounds. First-time buyers are finding themselves priced out entirely, while landlords are passing higher costs onto renters, pushing rent prices through the roof. Businesses aren't spared either. Small companies that borrowed during the pandemic are now seeing their repayment costs skyrocket. Many are cutting staff, freezing wages, or shutting down altogether. And here's the dangerous feedback loop. Higher interest rates slow down spending, which slows down the economy, which can lead to job losses, meaning even more people struggle to pay their debts. Historically, sudden and steep rate hikes have been a major trigger for recessions. In the UK's current fragile state, this pressure could be the breaking point that tips the economy over the edge. So here's a question for you. How are rising interest rates impacting you personally? Are you paying more on your mortgage, your rent, or your business loans? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else realize they're not alone. And if you want to keep ahead of these warning signs and learn how to protect yourself, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of this 10-part breakdown. Number 3, housing market implosion. If you want to see where an economy's cracks first start to show, look at the housing market. In the UK, those cracks are already spiderwebbing across the surface. House prices have been inflated for years, pushed up by low interest rates, cheap credit, and intense demand. But here's the problem. The conditions that created that boom are gone. Interest rates are high, lending criteria are stricter, and wages aren't keeping pace with the cost of living. Buyers are pulling back, sellers are panicking, and properties that would have sparked bidding wars in 2021 are now sitting unsold for months. It's not just about a dip in prices. It has a domino effect that ripples through the entire economy. When property values fall sharply, homeowners feel poorer and spend less. Construction slows, hitting jobs in building, materials, and real estate services. Banks get nervous about lending, and investors start to pull money out of the market. History offers a chilling reminder. In 2008, the UK's housing slump wasn't just a real estate problem. It was the trigger for a wider financial crisis. And right now, the warning signs are eerily similar. Rapid price drops in some regions, rising repossessions, and mortgage arrears creeping higher. If these trends accelerate, 2026 could see a wave of forced sales, plummeting values, and a dangerous spiral where the property market drags the rest of the economy down with it. The housing market doesn't just reflect, it can define it. And right now, the diagnosis is not looking good. Number 4, weak pound sterling. Currencies are like a country's heartbeat, and right now, the pound is showing worrying signs of fatigue. Over the past few years, it has taken repeated hits, from the Brexit fallout to global market shocks. While it has bounced back at times, the overall trend is one of vulnerability, and that weakness carries huge consequences. When the pound loses value against other major currencies, like the US dollar or the euro, imports instantly become more expensive. That means higher prices for fuel, food, technology, and just about every product that comes from abroad. For a country that imports a significant portion of its essentials, this isn't just an inconvenience, it's a direct hit to household budgets and business margins. Investors also pay close attention. If they sense uncertainty, they pull their money out, further weakening the pound. This creates a dangerous cycle. A weaker pound sparks inflation. Inflation pressures the Bank of England to raise rates, and higher rates strain the economy even more. In 2022, we saw how quickly confidence can evaporate. A single government policy announcement sent the pound plunging to record lows. If something similar happens in 2026, during an already fragile economic period, it could trigger panic in financial markets and pile more pressure on the government's ability to borrow affordably. A weak pound doesn't just make holidays abroad more expensive, it can quietly erode economic stability from the inside out. Number 5, declining productivity and skills gap. Picture this: 2 workers, one in Germany and one in the UK, both working the same number of hours. On average, produces significantly more value in that time. This isn't because UK workers aren't trying. It's because the UK economy has been lagging behind in productivity growth for years. Productivity is the engine that drives economic growth. When output per worker stalls, wages stagnate, tax revenues shrink, and the government has less to invest in public services. In the UK, that engine is sputtering. Outdated infrastructure, slow adoption of new technologies, and underinvestment in training have all played a part. Then there's the skills gap. Industries like engineering, healthcare, and tech are struggling to find qualified workers, while younger generations often lack access to the training needed for high-demand roles. Post-Brexit migration changes have only widened the gap, leaving businesses scrambling to fill vacancies or relocating operations entirely. Activity falls and key industries face labor shortages, the economy loses its competitive edge. Over time, that makes it harder to attract investment and easier for rival nations to pull ahead. It's like trying to win a race with a flat tire. No matter how hard you push, you'll struggle to keep pace. Without urgent action to upskill the workforce and modernize industries, the UK could find itself falling further behind, just when it needs every advantage to weather the coming storm. Number 6, supply chain fragility. Modern economies run on supply chains, invisible highways that move everything from energy to food to the parts that build our cars and phones. But the UK's supply chain is far more fragile than most people realise, and that fragility could be a key trigger for a 2026 economic collapse. The warning signs are already here. Russia's war in Ukraine to rising friction with China have disrupted global trade routes. Add in post-Brexit border checks, and goods that once flowed smoothly into the UK now face delays, extra costs, and uncertainty. Energy imports are a prime example. When global markets tighten, prices can spike almost overnight, as seen during the 2022 energy crisis. Food security is another weak point. The UK imports nearly half of its food, meaning any disruption in global shipping or agricultural output, whether from climate events, political instability, or trade disputes, can send supermarket prices soaring and supplies dwindling. The real danger lies in the domino effect. Supply chain shocks don't just create shortages, they ripple into higher prices, business closures, job losses, and reduced economic confidence. And unlike financial crises, you can't print your way out of an empty shelf or an energy shortage. Becoming more unstable, relying on fragile supply lines is like walking a tightrope in a storm. All it takes is one strong gust, and the whole system can come crashing down. Number 7. Global recession risk. The UK doesn't operate in isolation. It's part of a tightly woven global economy. That means even if Britain fixed every domestic problem overnight, it could still be dragged into crisis by events far beyond its borders. Right now, the world's 3 biggest economic engines, the United States, the European Union, and China, are all showing signs of slowing down. In the US, high interest rates are pressuring businesses and consumers. In Europe, energy costs and political tensions are weighing heavily on growth. And China, long considered the unstoppable manufacturing powerhouse, is facing its own debt problems, a cooling property exports. When these giants stumble, the shockwaves are global. For the UK, which depends heavily on exports, investment, and financial market stability, a downturn in one or more of these economies can mean falling demand for British goods, volatile stock markets, and investor flight. We saw this in 2008 when a crisis born in the US housing market rippled through the world, hammering UK banks and triggering years of austerity. In 2026, the danger is that multiple major economies could slow down at once, creating a perfect storm that leaves no safe harbor. In a global recession, trade shrinks, investment dries up, and currencies wobble. For the UK, already under strain from domestic challenges, it could be the final push that turns trouble into full-blown collapse. Number 8. Public sector strains. An economy isn't just about GDP charts and market trends, services that keep a country running. And in the UK, those services are buckling under pressure. The NHS, once seen as the pride of Britain, is now facing record waiting lists, staff shortages, and chronic underfunding. Patients are waiting months, sometimes years, for treatments, while exhausted doctors and nurses strike for better pay and conditions. This isn't just a healthcare crisis, it's an economic one. Poor public health reduces productivity, increases welfare costs, and weakens the workforce. Education is feeling the strain too. Teacher shortages, under-resourced classrooms, and budget cuts are affecting the quality of learning. That has a direct long-term cost, a less skilled workforce, which makes the UK less competitive on the global stage. Infrastructure, from railways to roads, is also showing signs of neglect. Delays, breakdowns cost businesses time and money, eroding efficiency across the board. When public services struggle, it creates a feedback loop. A weaker economy means less tax revenue. Less tax revenue means more cuts. More cuts mean weaker services, and the cycle repeats, each time digging the hole deeper. By 2026, if these strains continue to intensify, the public sector could reach a breaking point, and when the systems people rely on every day start to fail, economic collapse stops being a theory and becomes a lived reality. Number 9. Wealth inequality and social unrest. When the gap between the rich and the poor becomes too wide, history shows that stability starts to crack. In the UK, that gap has been growing for decades, but in recent years, it's become a chasm. While the wealthiest have seen their assets grow through investments, property, and business, millions of working families are struggling just to cover the basics. Food bank usage has soared. Energy bills have left households choosing between heating and eating. Meanwhile, soaring executive pay and luxury spending by the elite are making the divide more visible than ever. This isn't just a moral issue, it's an economic risk. Extreme inequality erodes consumer spending power, fuels resentment, and creates political volatility. When large parts of the population feel locked out of prosperity, social tensions rise. Protests, strikes, and unrest become more frequent, disrupting businesses and scaring off investors. We've already seen glimpses of this: waves of industrial action, mass demonstrations over the cost of living crisis, and growing distrust in politics. If economic pressures deepen by 2026, those sparks could ignite into something far more destabilizing. Wealth inequality doesn't just divide society, it weakens the foundations that hold it together. And in a fragile economy, that's a dangerous game to play. Number 10. Policy paralysis and political instability. In times of crisis, a country needs strong, decisive leadership. But in recent years, the UK has been lurching from one political drama to the next. Frequent leadership changes, snap elections, and policy U-turns that leave the public and investors alike guessing what comes next. This instability comes at a cost. When governments can't commit to long-term strategies, businesses hold back on investment. International partners hesitate to strike deals, and critical reforms, whether in housing, energy, or taxation, are abandoned altogether. Policy paralysis isn't just about politicians disagreeing. It's about an inability to make bold, consistent decisions when the stakes are high. Instead of proactive planning, we see reactive firefighting, patching up problems after they've exploded rather than preventing them in the first place. Political instability also shakes investor confidence. The markets hate uncertainty, and every unexpected resignation, budget reversal, or surprise law sends ripples through the pound, stocks, and bonds. Over time, those ripples can become waves. If by 2026 the UK still hasn't found stable leadership or a clear economic direction, the country could face a dangerous combination: deep economic pressures and no coherent plan to address them. And in that vacuum, collapse becomes not just possible, but probable. 10 warning signs that could shape the UK's future. But which one do you think is the biggest threat? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment. If you want the full picture, go watch my last video. It connects perfectly with what we've covered today. We pour countless hours into bringing, so if you found value here, please hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us.